Today we will be discussing the clean room washing machine.
Technics sputtering system. This is an older, I think almost 20-year-old system that is one of the few tools we have that are capable of depositing thin films on more than one substrate at a time. This guy will take 6 substrates. This is an old school system, sort of manually controlled instead of software controlled like so many of our new tools are. Okay, here's how this sputtering in general works. Basically you have rarefied gas, usually argon, at 50 to 20 millitorr, or sometimes lower. If you can get it to go lower, that's usually better. And you strike a plasma between 2 sets of electrodes. Okay, up here is the substrate to be coated, which acts as one electrode, and down here is the target, which has your metal material. Usually a metal, it can be a dielectric, but in this system it's usually a metal. And so you strike a plasma by putting either a very large DC potential between these electrodes or an RF potential, an oscillating electric field between these guys. And with the help of a magnetic field, you end up generating argon ions, which crash into the metal target, and then the metal target ends up liberating neutral metal atoms, and then they end up sticking to the substrate. That's the basic principle of how this works. There are lots of videos that cover this much better than that, and I'll link them in the description.
There's a chamber at the top of the Technics sputterer for your wafers. It can hold 6 wafers at once. Below that is a set of miscellaneous controls which allow you to choose which power supply, RF or DC. Rotate the platen that holds the wafers. To the right of that is a display that shows the pressure, and at one time it showed the RF and DC power. Below that is a set of valves and valve controls for controlling argon flow, nitrogen flow, and venting the chamber. Over there on the left on that white stand is a RF tuner and power supply. And then next to that is a DC power supply right in the center of the machine. Next to that is an ion gauge controller which displays pressures for below the millitorr range. And below that is a turbo pump controller for our turbo. And right at the bottom is the on-off switch.
Turning the system on means hit that guy, hit the vacuum switch, vacuum pump and chiller back here. Actual RF power supplies and tuning box. Alright. Good to go. Vent. Full series of switches here. Gauge valve on and off. Some work, some don't. Again, these things been cobbled together for quite some time. To open it, there's a vent switch. It will vent to nitrogen. So go ahead and pop that switch. Yeah, once it's vent. One thing, yes, sir. One thing to be aware of, the vent sometimes can blow your wafers off of the platen. So sometimes it's a good idea to put these on the back of your wafers. So I'm going to put a test wafer in here and kind of keep an eye on the deposition rates. Alright, there's the platen. Right in front of you. go ahead and undo those.
Put 2 in the middle there.
Yeah, right in the center. While you're doing that, make sure you don't rotate and flatten. The gear ratio between the motor and the flatten itself is real wacky. So you never ever want to do the rotate flatten by hand. Tear up the gears. And you'll see that there are numbers kind of posted around here. So the ones that are on the right side of the little cube here go for the RF side, and these go for the DC side, which we're not using. It just basically indicates when you're lined up with the on the right.
As in the right side of the block is exposed, or the right
Correct.
side of the circuit?
Correct. The number is on the right side of the block. Then it just shows when you're lined up. Okay. So we've got the guide, the sort of plasma guide. Then we've got another sort of grounding ring. This is grounded to the chamber. So, you know, this needs to be electrically isolated from the chamber. Just cut my eye. There's coolant that runs through there, so there's a chiller back there. It runs through the RF power supply and the sputter head to keep everything cool. Inside there's a bank of rare earth magnets that are sort of encapsulated in a piece of epoxy. And it's got a little flow channel for cooling water. And the idea is to keep the epoxy cool so that it doesn't go. Alright, so to change the target, I know that in years past they've had good aluminum targets and bad aluminum targets. This may be the bad aluminum target, so I'm going to swap it out. When I did the diagnostics on this a couple weeks ago, I used this one and got this type of film, which I think it's just really thin, but it looks kind of like crap. This in the name of pedagogy and just trying something different, trying different ones. Common to use this tape. It's kept on tape. Very special tape. Very low outgassing. Has a silicone-based adhesive, so it makes it relatively safe for vacuum. Doesn't outgas a whole lot. But there will be outgassing from beneath the tape a little bit. Captured oxygen. That will affect the deposition rate immediately adjacent to the tape. So when you do a profile of the thickness of the metal, you kind of want to get far away from that edge. Of the silicon, just to get a good idea of what the real thickness is. So I'll go ahead and put this in number 2.
And is that always polished that down? Right, features go with one direction. Features different.
So yeah, so it's gonna have an RF 13.6 megahertz or something. It's going to generate argon ions. The argon ions are going to end up being drawn to the target. Neutral metal will be released off of the surface of the target as a result of bombardment of the argon ions. And then generally it's neutral metal atoms, and then of course the so on and so forth.
Is there a cleaning process that needs to be done? Area number 2.
I'm going to go ahead and put one of these rings on the back side. Just a good idea to get in the habit. I mean, if the device, the problem is that when it vents, it can blow the whole wafer off, and you don't want to mess up the wafer or crack the wafer. That also serves as a heat sink, like if you're doing depositions onto a polymer or liftoff, then that helps to keep the wafer cool during pretty long deposition that we end up having to do in this machine. So one thing you should familiarize yourself with is flat and rotate. Okay. So if you look, number 2, I just went past number 2 here.
That's what that's for.
Right. So it shows that number 2 is lined up with, well, it's a little past lined up now, but I'll bring it back around.
Okay, so whatever number is displayed here is what number is in that position.
Yes, sir.
So then because it's on the right, I know it's on this end, because this end doesn't work.
Correct.
That's the piece.
Correct.
Got it.
So yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know so far. Let's see. So let's go ahead and make this. We're going to do a pre-sputter just to knock oxides and potential contaminants off of the target. So I'm going to move this out of the way. So closing this can be a little bit tricky.
Well, real quick before you, if I wanted to do this,
Used to be there was some play in the hinge back here, which kind of made it a challenge. If you have any problems, go back and kind of push back on the hinge area. Okay, so this is important. Roughing valve first, and the mechanical pump is running. Don't pinch your fingers. Don't pinch anything in here. That's a happy vacuum chamber. Okay.
By the way, here's a little diagram showing the pumping scheme for the Technics Sputterer. Enjoy.
So we're roughing down the chamber and we're pumping out the turbo. The turbo's not spinning up yet. At this point, we're getting to 100 millitorr. You can go ahead and fire up the turbo. Just press, let's see, it's already on, or the controller has power going to it. All you gotta do is press the start. Yes, sir? Alright, that's good. So that says that the RPMs are less than 27,000. So it's not really going until it's below 27,000. Now, but bear in mind, right now we have both of these valves open. And one thing you don't want to do is keep it in that state when we open that gate valve. Because then you won't be properly backing the turbo pump. So before we open the gate valve, or just before we open the gate valve, we'll close the roughing valve and then pop open the gate valve. But you don't want to open the gate valve above, I would say 100, 150, because it's a lot of force on the turbo. All right, so green light has switched on the turbo. So it's happy. So go ahead and close the roughing valve. And the gate valve switch is right there on the right. Pop that guy open. And you should see this pressure plummet. Oh yeah, I forgot about something.
Oh, did you?
This gauge has a terrible, terrible offset. That's about 0. Last time, and I recorded, whenever I do a deposition on the system, I record the offset on the, I think this is a baritone type gauge. So it's a capacitive manometer. So I record the offset. So 62 was essentially 0 last time.
Well, there you have it. That's the end of part 1. Join us for the exciting conclusion in part 2, where we actually strike a plasma and put down a layer of aluminum.